Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of our Let's Talk Arsenal series. In today's show, we'll be breaking down and reading through Mikel Arteta's press conference and the highlights from his words ahead of Arsenal's first game of the new Premier League season away at Crystal Palace. Thank you so much for joining. Of course, do drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show. Hope we're doing good and well. Brad and father and sons, Sina, Steve, Jeffrey, Benjamin, thank you so much, guys, for tuning into the channel as always. We kick off the show by looking into some of the questions and responses to what Mikel Arteta has had to deal with in the first press conference. What I would say is that, I think across the All or Nothing series, as you're going to hear some answers on that soon, what we've seen from Mikel Arteta is a change in stance to the media. He's tried to be more receptive. He's trying to be a little bit more charismatic, I suppose, but does get guidance from the communications officer, Mark Ganella, and I think his answers have become a little bit more wordy. I do feel as though that he's been in the past quite resistant and restrictive sometimes. Will be willing to speak on certain topics, but I think he's opening up a lot more in these press conferences, and I think we're going to see that a lot more this season, hopefully, with Arsenal being in a lot better position competitively. So he was asked the question on whether it's his team now. He says it's always been my team because these are our players, and always we have had the intention to get the best out of them. It's true that obviously we have trimmed the squad and changed the squad massively in the last two windows, especially, and you feel that now the players we have are more specific and better for the way that we want to play. Now, Mikel Arteta has had now his 3 summers. Well, nearly had them. We're pretty much at the close of the current one, less than a month now to go to bring in any more players before the window slams shut. And Mikel Arteta, I think, for me, has certainly been looking to bring in players that are versatile, that are pressured, or not pressured, but prefer to pressure, and will give a lot of energy to the team. We think about the players like Alexander Zinchenko and Gabriel Jesus, 2 players that add not only that pressing and leadership quality, but the winning mentality that they had at Manchester City to win those Premier League titles. And not only that, but we're now seeing those players that weren't his moved on. I mean, you think about the amount of players we've moved on since he's arrived. The squad that started that first game against Bournemouth all those years ago. I say it's only all those years ago, but December 2019. You think about Lacazette and Aubameyang still being there. You think Leno being in goal, Lucas Torreira being in midfield, Matteo Guendouzi. There's been a lot of players that have been moved on from that point forwards. And now we find a squad that is very much his. And that's where we need to be as a club, because we need to be able to be in a place where we're only pointing the finger towards the coach and not kind of have any other excuse to label forwards. He was asked an interesting question about Gabriel Jesus and Alexander Zinchenko. He says, I cannot say it was in terms of kind of that discussion that he had with Guardiola, but I can tell you that this works both ways, and both parties have to be happy to do that. He was telling me that it was 2 phenomenal people that he was losing. I know them, and I know how privileged we are to have them, and I'm really happy. It's obviously a big pull from Arteta's side of things to be able to have that connection with players at Manchester City. We know that perhaps if we were going for players of the same caliber elsewhere, that Arteta is still kind of building up his clout in the market, that attraction that players would want to come and play for him. But I think moves like this certainly help. Going for players that he knows, players that he can work with and have already worked with him, means that they're going to be integrated much, much easier into the group. But also, I think it's going to be a little bit of a stamp of authority on the market to say, look, Arsenal are able to attract these level of players. Hopefully, that's enticing enough to convince more players to join the club in the future. New players coming in, he said, we are really active, as you can see, with incomings and outgoings. Everything is still open. It's a long window. A lot has happened. It's incredible how much business the clubs have done across the Premier League, and it shows how competitive it is, and this season is not going to stop that. Players are going to have the need to leave, some others to move, and everything is still open. These are the words I think we can pretty much expect from Mikel Arteta all the way through until the final days of the transfer window. Arsenal will remain active. We are looking at potential targets. Midfield and attack are 2 areas that are still in the plan, if you would have it that way, that Arsenal want to move through and try and strengthen with. Who those players end up being still looks relatively mysterious. We know about Yuri Tielemans being a key target, and we know, of course, about wide players like Cody Gakpo. But I kind of have a feeling that maybe one of the players we end up signing isn't one of those 2. and maybe we pull a little bit of a surprise out of the bag before the window does end up closing. Talking about the All or Nothing series, I wonder if many of you have had a chance now to sit down and watch all 3 of the first episodes of the series. He says, when asked if it was a distraction, he says, no, well, the distraction or the attraction was last year, having them here every single day. At the end, we tried to work together, tried to make sure whatever is produced is a reality of how this club is run, the passion of its people, the aims and responsibilities that we all have to make it work, how much we care and love the club, and how much enjoyment we're going to bring to our people. So Arteta there admitting quite a heavy amount of involvement involved in kind of the process of what is put out. They said they wanted it to be a fair reflection on the reality of what Arsenal Football Club is. Can you do that if you're having any kind of editing power? I think it's up for debate about whether or not that's possible. But we all knew that when this was going to happen, that they were, of course, going to be involved in the process around editing and what was shown and what wasn't shown. It will be intriguing as the Aubameyang controversy, of course, unravels in episode 4, which is next week, and it'll be out on Thursday, how that influences what we ultimately know about the club and what they're willing for us to see during the course of that. If Arteta comes out looking like a saint in that entire thing and Aubameyang looks like a massive villain, would that be a fair reflection? Ultimately, we don't really know, but we'll see what indeed the reaction and the reality is that is shown in that episode. But I'm looking forward to seeing that. Do I think this is a distraction? Not particularly. I think Arteta's right to say that the cameras and the journalists being around last season were more of a distraction than the series actually coming out. You know, at the end of the day, I don't think this is a distraction at all, and they've very much just got their heads down and ready for what's going to come. Talking about injuries, and there was quite a lot of questions on player injuries. He said 3 out of the 4 of those players, Tomiyasu, Smith-Rowe, Tierney and Fabio Vieira, are going to be training this afternoon. We don't know which one isn't, although I'm pretty well informed that Smith-Rowe is the player that's not going to be involved as of yet. Who knows? That may change. And if everything goes well, they will be available for selection and in the squad. Hopefully, we can start to recover because they've been missing a lot of minutes and time in pre-season, and they are really important players for us. Asked further on Tierney and Tomiyasu, he says they had persistent injury problems last season. Do you have any concerns about their long-term fitness and they're going to have problems you'll have to manage going forwards? He says, hopefully not. The reason they got those persistent injuries are for different reasons, probably because the squad didn't enable them to recover and we don't play them when it was necessary and it was too tired when they weren't fully recovered. So sometimes we had to rush them. It was a combination of things with those 2 players. They're so pushy and willing to contribute with the team. We know that with these 2 fit and performing at their best, we are a much stronger team. This is something that's going to change, I think, at the end of this season. Actually, not even just throughout this season, but at the start of it, because we don't want to see these players rushed back. We don't want to see the club put into a situation again where players like Thomas Partey was rushed back too quickly and, of course, got that injury again. Tomiyasu was definitely rushed back too quickly and got that injury again. And this is why this time around, we have brought in Alexander Zinchenko. William Saliba has come back. And those 2 players being in the squad this time around gives us far, far greater depth of quality. Ben White, of course, his versatility is going to be really key. Compared to having players like Holding and White playing centre-back and right-back, we've now got Saliba and White, which is a lot more mobile, a lot more expressive, and certainly a lot more of what Mikel Arteta wants from his team. And I think that it's impressive that we've been able to strengthen that area as much as we have to be able to convince Saliba to stay for this season and bring in a player of the level of Zinchenko to provide competition on the left-back role. We are so much better prepared this time around. At the end of last season, unfortunately, we just had this worst situation possible where our 2 backups in Cedric and Tavares playing at the same time just dropped the level far too much, and that heavily cost us in the race for top 4. And we know, obviously, what ended up happening in the end. But, yeah, having Zinchenko, having Saliba, having that depth in those 2 areas in particular to cover for Tierney and Tomiyasu is massive. And to be honest, what's most impressive about it is that if we start off well this season at the White, Saliba, Gabriel and Zinchenko at the back 4, Tomiyasu and Tierney may struggle to get back into the team. It was interesting listening to what Clive had to say on the Arsenal Visions prediction podcast about Tomiyasu and his feeling that he might play more games at left back. I can see what he means if Zinchenko is going to be used more in an advanced midfield role. But then, of course, what happens with Granit Xhaka? And that is all of the main highlights. Of course, if you want to go read the rest of the quotes and the conversation that Arteta had, you can watch them over on the Arsenal Way, or you can read them on the Arsenal website. The link to that, of course, is right there on your screen. We're going to get some of the reaction from you guys in the chat box as to how you're feeling about Arteta's words. And of course, the game tomorrow. As I said, there will be a show at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, but there won't be a match reaction show because as of about 8:30 in the morning, I will be officially on my stag do. So there will be no shows up until Monday at 8 a.m., I'm afraid to say. Let's go to Paul, who says, see all 3 episodes. Interesting, very interesting how Arteta has evolved as a manager. I think it's going to be very revealing to see more throughout the series. Vinny says, the series is so good. It gives you a completely different perspective of the club and Arteta. King saying the series is wonderful. Zamir says he's curious whether or not the Vlahovic saga and the Saliba sagas will at all be involved in the series. Vlahovic, I have a feeling, that the Vlahovic thing and the January transfer stuff, that might feature a bit. I have just a sneaky suspicion. I don't know that. There's no inside knowledge. I don't know anything beyond really episode 4. So I don't know whether or not the Vlahovic situation will feature, but I just have a kind of an odd feeling that it might. Saliba, I doubt very much we'll see anything of Saliba and his time at Marseille, but who knows? Could be proven wrong. I hope I am. I think that'd be really interesting to hear what he's got to say on that. Let's scroll up a little bit more. Halia says that you'll never walk alone training looked a bit naive. Obviously, we lost the game 4-0. And so that makes it look very naive because we lost. I understand the concept behind what he was trying to do with the speakers in the training ground. I think it's pretty obvious what he was trying to do. It can't ever replicate, that situation of playing at Anfield. And to be honest, we went to Anfield later in the season and kept the first clean sheet that any team has for a very long time at Anfield. So perhaps, who knows, later on down the line, it did prepare them better in combination with that 4-0 loss. Ramsdale said that they won't be coming out there anytime soon again, and certainly the feeling is that they haven't done since that day. It was a little bit of a wide left field trial of something different. It didn't work, and a lot of managers, I can tell you for certain, try lots of wild and interesting things to try and get the edge psychologically in games. This one didn't work. Perhaps other ones will in the future. The one before the Burnley game worked. They were calm, they were composed, and they won 1-0. So you would say that one worked, whilst this one didn't. Let's scroll down. Let's go to Suleiman. Says, it doesn't matter, brother. Zaha is dangerous, and only Tomiyasu could handle him. White and Saliba playing on that right-hand side for Arsenal is going to be interesting about how they handle Zaha. I look forward to seeing those two try and restrict what he's able to do on the field, and fingers crossed they can keep him very, very quiet indeed. As I said in the preview yesterday, I feel that Vieira may actually move Zaha over to the right-hand side to give himself a better chance of a run at Zinchenko and Gabriel. That seems defensively a little bit weaker than our right-hand side. Zamir says it's an NFL training method. Teams will blast noise on speakers to train their team to play without verbal communication. It's not exactly like it's an original idea. And to be honest, you think about when training for penalty shootouts, they try stuff all the time to try and replicate that of a game, but it's never going to be able to do the exact same. It's going to give you some level of preparedness, but it's never going to give the same level. And that's just a reality. But to see the level of criticism, even from Arsenal fans, I've seen of that situation, I think that if there's anything that's cringy, it's the level of criticism towards it, to be honest. Deep 11 says they should have made more episodes. The way they rush over the big games like Man United, Man City and West Brom is annoying. Yeah, I agree with you. They do kind of rush over a lot of that. But what I would say is that I think the last 6 episodes will be more in depth about the series. If you think about it, we're already at the end of November by the time we actually finish episode 3. So we got just over half the season remaining to cover in 6 episodes. So I think that we will see more stuff in detail with the last 6 episodes of the series. PAPP says, Tom, are you going to be doing the academy loan players shows and players that are being in the England for 5 years get dual citizenship like Xhaka, Cedric, El Neni, Jesus and Zinchenko? I don't know anything about that, but what I would say is that we are going to be covering Nuno Tavares. Of course, last season we spoke with Ben from the Marseille View. about William Saliba, I'm very happy to tell you that Ben will be returning for next season as we do our dedicated shows following Nuno Tavares and how he gets on at Marseille next season. It just makes sense, of course, that we do that because we did it so brilliantly and successfully with the Saliba tactical breakdown. So the tactical breakdown for the loans will be returning. I don't know too many Rennes fans, to be honest, and I don't know any content creators around them, but Ben's knowledge of French football is very good, so we can probably include following Balogun whilst covering Nuno Tavares as well. In terms of the youth, I've not yet sorted out anything for the youth team for next season as of yet. There's going to be a lot of shows next year. I'm not sure the youth one will feature as regularly, but I will still try to keep you updated as best I can on things to do with the youth team as well. So that's the hope. But there is a lot going on next season, and I need to, just try and sort out what's going to be happening. Let's go to Harvey. It says, Tom, I see Chelsea signing a lot of young players. Was the players out on loan you could have restricted now? There is obviously a new law in place that's going to be put into effect very soon. It's already restricting the Italian teams, but there is a loan restriction going on right now about how many times you can send players on loan, about how many clubs can have that number of players on loan. Chelsea's still going to have that many players, but we'll see if that changes. MVR says, Tom, are you and Curtis Shaw ever going to do a show? You guys are always having Twitter interactions. Hey, look, the offer's been out there for a while. He's not taken it up so far. We have differing views on a lot of things. It'd probably be a good show. Maybe you should tweet him. Start bugging him, and we'll see if indeed we can have a chat. Harvey, we've done that question. Let's go to John Daly. He says, will Lucas Torreira ever leave? Very soon. He will leave very, very soon. I'm very hopeful of that. John says, does the players playing during the You'll Never Walk Alone, or is it before the game? They play it before the game. They don't play it during the game, and the fans sometimes sing it toward the end of the game. But to be honest, Liverpool's atmosphere is a bit of a myth. It's good before the game, but during it isn't wild. And if anything, our actions really did stoke them up, Arteta in particular. And I think that was a bit of a letdown. Anyway, it's only a shorter show for our press conferences because I'm starting work in a couple of minutes' time. But thank you so much for tuning in. As I said, I will be live tomorrow morning, but that will be the final show over the course of the weekend until I return on Monday. There's potential for me to record a small clip about what my thoughts are of the Palace game and upload them, but there's no promises at this stage, I'm afraid. But if I can sort something, I will. But thank you so much, guys, for tuning into the show. Do drop a like on the video. King, I see you in the chat box and I see what you're trying to do, and I'm not buying it. Have a fantastic afternoon, evening, and of course, enjoy the game tomorrow. Fingers crossed we come out with a fantastic result. See you soon, and as always, up the Arsenal.